Joining me now is Sky News contributor Louise Roberts and News Corp columnist Angela Mollard. Ladies, I did not see this Vanity Fair piece coming at all. It really has had some absolutely astounding claims. Now, Louise, where do we even start to analyse this? I mean, you comment on the Sussexes and the royal family all the time. What raised your eyebrows?
I think this is a very dangerous piece because it's exactly the sort of expose these guys do not want, and they can't dismiss it as sort of tabloid tittle-tattle. This is Vanity Fair, a magazine which makes or breaks careers globally, let alone in Hollywood, and traditionally has had a very good relationship with the royal family in Britain. And they have no cover from the Buckingham Palace press office on this one as well, so they're really on their own. For me, as you said, it's the post-divorce book that apparently was being floated to a unnamed publisher, and apparently there was no deal, there's nothing in writing, there's no voice tapes or anything, but that's devastating, not only for Harry, who presumably didn't know about this until the Vanity Fair piece came out.
You got kids.
But also the children who will read about this in years to come, that mummy was thinking ahead about life after daddy as well. So I found that staggering. The other thing I thought was interesting was Meghan being described as a caregiver and facilitator. I mean, Harry's only 40. He doesn't need to be masterminded or managed to that extent, you would think. So I think at the very least, he's got sort of Stockholm syndrome. And at the worst case scenario, he's being totally manipulated by her and sort of in a sort of narcissistic pattern being exiled from his friends and family. On that note, apparently one of the quotes is that she says that Harry has no friends in California, which did actually make me feel quite sorry for him in a way.
How do you think it came about? How did this happen? Because I did not see this coming.
Well, I think they were doing some digging. They wanted to do an expose, and the level and severity of allegations that came up meant they either had to spike the piece or run what they had, which was never going to be flattering to the Sussexes, who traditionally have been treated quite well by Vanity Fair.
They have. What are your thoughts? And do you have a different theory about how this came about?
It's really difficult to know how it did come about. They could have been looking at... Look, I was looking a couple of months ago and have been writing pieces in preparation for the 5 years. So they would have been working towards that. To Louise's point, I think, yes, they could well have been going in there, not to do a glorious, we love Harry and Meghan.
Yes.
That would never go down. You're never going to get the circulation and the interest in it. But I think what they've found corroborates what's been said over the last, well, nearly 10 years, because it's 10 years next year since they met. My takeout from the whole thing is how deeply in trouble Harry is. Yeah. So many things have been said in that piece. The fact that he relies on her, that he is being reparented by her, that he wouldn't mind not working and her doing all the work. The fact that they're disingenuous people. I don't think Harry is necessarily a disingenuous person. I think Harry's a guy that grew up in a system that's not the system he's now living in.
That's
and
quite right.
I feel he's incredibly vulnerable right now.
Is it a codependence?
Of course it's a codependency, but he lost his mother. He went through this traumatic situation. Even some of the things he says show a complete lack of maturity, as was said in this expose, how he was talking about Vladimir Putin and other kind of megalomaniacs in the world stage and saying, you know, how is it that I didn't become a bad guy because I went through this sort of trauma? There's a kind of really basic, immature understanding about himself and how the world works. But I think he's terribly vulnerable. He's cut off from his family. He's now living in America. He could be marooned there, unconnected to his wife, unconnected to his children, not potentially living with his children. I think this is the worst scenario we've seen in the last decade for Harry.
Which, and I'll stay with you because this here is then really quite pertinent to going forward. Where do you go from here as either the Sussexes or as Meghan and Harry as separate professional, park the personal stuff to one side, where do you go from, how do you regain your footing after something like this?
I think Harry goes straight back to the people that advised him when he was a teenager, the people that gathered around him, that kept him and William safe straight after the death of their mother, people that advised them well, and there's a series of people who that's still the godparents to Harry and William's children. You pull in a person like that is recommended and you get really clear advice. You stop going for this person and that person because you've heard great
Who's
things
a
about
fashionable PR person in Hollywood.
You go back to a palace-endorsed support person who knows what's required from royal but can also straddle the world of celebrity. And Harry particularly, uniquely and on his own, needs that guidance and advice right now. He actually needs his brother.
Yeah, well, there is that, and I think you're absolutely right there. And that there is a very good point, because is this the end of it? Like, is there more? Like, what you can try and move forward. You can try and refoot yourself and reset and whatever. But does something like this happen again, or is there the potential for something like this? Because it creates more than just waves.
I think the genie's out of the bottle as far as people publishing or publications writing stories criticising the Markles and the Meghan and Harry, because previously there was a bit of a cocoon of silence around them. Yet now I think the game's up, really, and for them, to Angela's point, they need to find some proper palace-endorsed PR machinery to protect them. But whether Harry will do that, I don't think Meghan will. She doesn't want a bar of it. She feels whatever she says and whatever path she takes is the righteous one.
Which can be problematic.
Yes.
But you wrote a piece for Sky News Australia this week about the comments that the Sussexes made in relation to Meta removing fact checkers. What happened, and what's your view across this? Because the position that Zuckerberg's taken in relation to having something similar to community notes that is now on the platform X as opposed to fact checkers, I mean, it has been welcomed in some circles, and then it's been absolutely slammed here.
It has. So I think most people think the sort of breakup of the fact-checking unit is a good thing, because it had become some sort of like a censorship weapon in a way. There was arbitrarily sort of people deciding what should and should not be published. I really feel that the Sussexes have sort of missed a trick here, because they could have actually reached out to Zuckerberg and said, you know, given our concerns around child online safety and, you know, emboldening parents to sort of navigate the digital space, how can we work together with you if the fact-checking unit has been dismantled? Instead, they got on their high horse, as usual, from Montecito HQ and said this is a bad thing for free speech, when most people would say the exact opposite. So, you know, and they were also saying things like, it's going to create profit only for Facebook, it's going to cause chaos in families, and it's going to cause a lot of misinformation. These are two people, of course, who've created that environment themselves within their own family.
Probably should sit this one out.
And cause chaos, that's right, as well. So I really found their sort of view very hypocritical, which is why I wrote the column, because I thought, you know, work with Meta, don't work against them.
And that's fair enough. And particularly when you're seeing such a shift more broadly, don't you want to be part of the change rather than railing against the change? Now, is this another unseemly foray by the Sussexes into politics, perhaps without them maybe being aware of that? Or is it justified given their advocacy on something like online abuse, or does Louise make a fair observation?
Look, it's fair enough to say that they had this advocacy, but it's 1 year old, not even 1 year. It's happened in the last year, so they don't have the rungs on the ladder in the space yet. So to jump in there, they are like barnacles on every cause that passes. It's like something passes, let's jump on that. The fires, online safety, then they're on to the next thing. There's no legacy projects that they're involved with. And I think, yes, it's fine to have a voice and fine to be advocates, but not to just jump from one thing to the next without any real thought and the ramifications of what that will happen.
Or strategy about how it all fits together.
Absolutely. And that's what happened with Spare, and what has come out in this Vanity Fair piece is that Harry did not think through the repercussions of Spare. They don't think through when they attach themselves to every passing cause. The fires, for instance, they got slammed for it as disaster tourists. You can't keep making these mistakes and still have a reputation with the public that has any kind of authenticity or gravitas. You just lose all of what you are unless you think strategically, and they can't do that.
No, they can't do that. They can't do that. Onto something else. And Louise, next week is Holocaust Day in the UK. The Prince will be leading the ceremony in the UK because the King is going to be leading a delegation to Auschwitz.
Yes,
what can you tell us about this? This is novel, it seems.
So William will be doing a speech at this Guildhall, a special service, and he'll talk about sort of reparation and, you know, being a better future for people as well, which is great. And of course, as you said, Charles will make the trip to Poland for the first time. He'll meet some locals in Krakow itself before actually going to the camp itself. And I do find that in the current climate we're in, particularly in Australia, to see both of them, the King and the future King, two separate events, two separate countries, and really reinforcing their views about, you know, keeping the memory of the Holocaust alive to serve as a notice for future events, I think it's fantastic. So,
and a great piece of cross-generational teamwork.
It is, and of course William and Kate also have a real connection to that cause as well. William has met many Holocaust survivors previously, and Kate actually photographed some last year, and there was a special exhibition of that. So they're very aware of the key issue here and what's happening in the world at the moment, particularly with the ceasefire in Gaza.
Absolutely. Now, one last thing. This week was the celebration of the 35th anniversary of the King's Foundation, and Rod Stewart joined in the party.
What a wonderful way to celebrate the 35th anniversary of the foundation.
I was going to put my watch in, but I was told I wouldn't get it back.
In 100 years' time.
I think Rod should have put a song in.
It's hard to know who's actually the king here, isn't it?
Oh, I know.
Look. The what was the Prince's Foundation, now the King's Foundation, has done some admirable work. It's important to celebrate these things.
35 years, and think about it, he was 40 when he, or 41 when he started this, and this is what William's doing now with homelessness within the Earth Prize. He is establishing these legacy projects, and what's beautiful is, and what I love about the King, is that he gathers people around him that have done the work.
Yep.
So Rod Stewart's done the work. Penny Lancaster, his wife,
Yes.
works as a police officer. Alan Titchmarsh is a very celebrated gardener in England. The Beckhams, they're people that the public respects, and I think that alignment with, you know, you can join with celebrity people and it all looks good, but if it's not authentic and you don't actually have that friendship, they do.
They definitely have that friendship. They definitely have that friendship.
Lovely. And the King's Foundation has done extraordinary work. It's helped people in all sorts of areas of life, and it's something that the King, having waited to get to the crown, was a brilliant concept.
It was a brilliant piece of preparation to get to the top job, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Ladies, as always, fabulous to have you on the desk, Louise Roberts and Angela Mollard.